Have you seen this?
Hey there! Oh shit! For one of your many injuries. Was this the bee?
This is the hornet. Stanley made me a Christmas sweater.
Oh Jesus!
Well, I know it's past Christmas, but
still, it's good.
I'm like, I wanted to show it off before the thing. Hey, I know, buddy. It's fine. Everything's good.
Hey there! Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM. See, we got to be at the same fucking level. If I move forward and you move forward, pretty soon we're going to be right up there.
You're right there. Look at the line you're in.
All right. Welcome to the OCGFAM show. To you, my YouTube buddies. Viewer question 24, Scott. I can see that you are rested and ready for a new year. Excited about it. With the innocence of a child. Ready to dive on in. And I am too. I'm excited for the year. Hello, gentlemen. This is from user DI5QX2DM6Q. Hello, gentlemen. I have a question regarding enhancing flavors in bloom, which seems to be a hot topic among viewers. It is. I'm running
it's probably a lot of
Colorado
growing really dull weed, and they're starting to go, you know what? I'm really good at growing dull weed. Now I really want to grow the good weed. So. And I've heard some guys growing some good weed. I just got to figure out how to do it. It's the good weed.
Yeah, okay.
You know, we've had a whole year of weed. Now we need good weed.
I could use some good weed.
Yeah.
That should be our slogan. I am running Colorado cookies, autoflowers indoors using an amended Roman regimen. I really want to bring out the sweet terpenes on this one and plan to go heavy on Herc, Aphrodite, Persephone, and Pegasus accordingly. My question is, when should I really start pushing hard? Being autoflowers, the window of manipulation can be short. Should I fire away at first sign of flower? Wait until I see buds forming? What are your thoughts? You got some other details here, but I love the products, love the show. So, can I ask you, just, why wouldn't you push in veg, even with these flavorful things? Am I wrong about that? What would you...
Well, I mean, when it comes to flower production and when that plant is developing the flower sites and the flower bodies, that's when it's also producing the oils, creating trichomes, and then that's where the terpenes are all going to be coming from. So trying to promote all those terpenes in the early stages usually equal to overfed plants. So you're sitting there pushing hard in veg, and the plant's an autoflower and it's only a foot tall, and it's 21 days in. You can way overfeed them, so there's no point in pushing early until you start to see the flower sites.
Okay, and also about pushing through not just volume, but pushing through diversity. You would also, as far as, would you run a simpler regimen at the start of the veg than you would?
Yeah.
So I'm totally wrong about that, which is
not
perfect.
necessarily, because I know many rooms you walk in, even in the veg room, you're like, wow, I can already smell the oils and the terpenes happening, but you're not going to enhance them at that stage because the plant is focusing on cell development, tissue growth, canopy. It's
getting big and strong forward.
Yeah, it's prepping itself. But the trick with autoflowers is, for us photo periods, we know that on the 5th we're switching them over. We have 7 to 10 days before we see sight of flowers. Then we have X amount of time before the end. It helps us work on. I'm going to start pushing that week before I go into bloom.
Sure. You know about what it's going to be
because I'm turning the clock down to 12 and 12. So knowing that, I can start manipulating that flower development earlier. But with autos, I usually encourage people, unless you've grown the same auto and you know every single day what's going to happen, I would like to start it in about 4 or 5 days before they're going to start to show flowers. But if you're new to the show, you're new to autos, and you're new to our line, I would wait till you see the first sign of female flower development. Then I'd start manipulating your terpene enhancements to kind of guide that plant to taste the way you would like for it to taste. In his case, because he's doing Afro, Herc, Pegasus, and what's the other one he wants to push? Persephone.
Persephone, yeah.
So, I would be doing Herc and Afro like my normal amounts all the way into the first, second week of flower development. Pegasus, I really focus on Pegasus for the fruity terpenes for only 2 to 3 weeks in the middle of the flowering cycle because of that nitrogen protein that's in there. I don't want to be pushing that in the last 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of flowering, because it's going to keep that plant green without giving it the excuse to fall or start fading. So I really focus just on the middle of the flowering cycle, a visual flower cycle, to be pushing the Pegasus. And pushing the Pegasus, that's 5 to 10 mils. Above 10 mils, you're giving it a veg food, basically. So sticking to a 5 to 10 to just keep maintaining that terpene profile, but then cutting it out with 2 to 3 weeks left in the cycle.
So within reason, too soon is better than too late.
Oh yeah, well, too late, you just keep them, you'll taste it, not in the good way, because your plant doesn't have the ability to break it all down, convert it all to sugars. It will be, residual left in your plant if you're feeding really heavy in the last week.
So, better too soon than too late, but better too little than too much, to where you would start reversifying sooner, but you would not maybe push as hard as if you weren't sure, like you do 2 mils or...
Yeah, and I would definitely manipulate it and play with the levels. I mean, the autoflowers are a trick. I mean, when it's pushing, it's hard to push in a 3-gallon pot.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys will do 3 to 5s or keep their root balls pretty small because it's a start to finish plant. Where, a photo guy is being able to go from a 1 to a 3 to a 7 to a 15. It gives them a lot more ability to kind of push with more volume and more strength, because they have a way bigger medium to absorb that shock of the nutrients, where a 3-gallon pot, you're better off just feeding them way more often. Like my push in a 3-gallon auto plant would be try to feed them more often during the week, the same recipe, versus trying to feed them more of a recipe less often.
Would you say, in your experience with autoflowers, that there's enough consistency among a specific genetic that you can learn over multiple runs, and that's kind of a marathon more so than a sprint?
I mean, if you trust it, I think if you've got a good breeder, you got a good genetic, and you've run it 3 to 4 rounds, you've got a feel for. I mean, it's like some guys with Scooby snacks. They know exactly. Oh, when I see this is when I do that.
So that's kind of,
I've done it for 4 years.
That's the game of it with the autoflower, is that
if you're popping new seeds every single run and you're getting a new breeder, but it's all the same genetics, you're going to have a different variant every single time, and a different hurdle and challenge you got to face. So, ideally, if you really want to dial something in, you pick the genetic you love, or a handful of them, focus on them, and stick with them.
Okay, good answer. Matt Rabase. I'm using Nectar number 4 soil and doing the Bill Burns regimen. Skipped on me there. My soil started to stink pretty bad after feeding Ortiz about a week ago. I'm at the end of late flower, and before I water, the room smells great. At about 4 to 6 hours after feeding, the stink goes away. Is it the soil, not the plant? What is causing that stink? Slurry told me 6.5 and 375 ppm. The plants are super healthy. Also, the odor is my only issue question.
But it doesn't stick around. It's just when the soil's wet. Well, I mean, without smelling it, knowing what is it a fishy smell? Does it smell like some of the nutrients that you put in? Like if you're using Kraken, well, that's
good answer.
Kraken and Tritons is in the air, and it's just being dissipated.
Sure.
I know a good healthy potting soil with bacteria gassing and fungal, they have their own aroma.
Yeah. But it's more that terroir kind of situation where it smells good, or is it?
It depends on the person. I mean, I love the smell of funky soil because I know it's live,
it's working.
But as long as the smell goes away, then I'm not really all too concerned, because it sounds like
it's working.
It's the food going in. The food is saturating the air. The plants are absorbing the food. Then the food smell goes away.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's happening just when he's like getting home from work and he's got a little stink bug. It's maybe him. It may be you, Matt.
Retract that. It probably isn't.
It's probably not you.
Maybe
Matt.
Bob stopped by and took a poop in one of your pots. That's probably more likely.
At Agros 2870. What would the number one, if only one microbe product to use in flower with Nectar for the Gods be besides SLF and Photo Plus when wanting the best possible general terpenes? Thank you for all the info. Now I'm gonna modify this question to that I would say that Photo Plus is definitely the most popular, easiest, simplest way to do that, but I would not put it as a mandatory in my opinion.
No.
I would say that SLF is your mandatory. And if you were going to go to another microbe, would that be Photo Plus, or would you do something else if you only had one in addition to SLF?
Well, to answer that question, with the Photo Plus and SLF is still part of it because of the
fair enough.
The belief system we've already put out there.
Yeah.
Now today, it would be the Pluto.
Yeah.
Because it's our own phosphorus bacillus strains that Green Grow has made for us to work with our line. And really, what we're seeing, especially for, well, I'll take that back. If I had to choose one more microbe outside of SLF, accompanied with Photo Plus, I'd brew my own compost tea.
Fair enough.
And now, aside of brewing your own compost tea, I would use the Pluto as my flower fix, or my phosphorus fixing, or my flower designed bacteria that I would be using twice during the flowering cycle. And then, what I would do is SLF goes in every feeding, or at least every single feed flush.
Yeah.
Photo Plus is every time I do a tea. And then the Pluto would be on its own day, because I'm trying to do a feed tea, and some days I don't want to brew a tea, some days I don't want to use I don't mind using the Photo Plus, but I don't need to only run Photo Plus, so I kind of create this diverse plan of different microbes. So every tea is a slightly different than the last tea, so I'm adding different forms of life so they can balance each other out in the soil. Because a lot of people, they focus on just one bacteria.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good, because you just stick with one bacteria, there's no diversity, and what happens is they all just start kind of linearly working together, and then you miss all these other opportunities or other issues that need to be addressed by other bacteria that you can brew in a compost tea or through SLF or through. So having a very diverse range of different composts or microbes you apply is going to give you a bigger and better soil biota, and how it's going to be working together with the plant to keep the plant healthy and fed. So it's a hard answer, or hard question to answer, because there's no such thing as narrowing down them. If we had to do anything, I'd narrow down all the nutrients, and I would focus on increasing my microbial field, because the microbes are what do all the work for our plants. And so if we're working with millions of diverse microbes, no matter what we throw in that soil, those microbes are going to handle it and then convert it to something the plant can use.
I feel like the Photo Plus situation, that it is highly recommended by us, is my fault and good bad thing, that I did this because it seemed like it was the most expedient way to have some sort of microbial thing if someone wasn't going to do tea, especially if they were working indoors and didn't have an issue. Would you agree that, would you have picked Photo Plus out of all the others for simplicity and utility? Oh, I'm not, take SLF out of the equation.
Because I know the people that own it, I know the company that makes it, I know where they brew it, I know how they manufacture it. Because I know what goes into Photo Plus and what they've done with Photo Plus, it's not a bad. It's the easiest turnkey outside of, like, I think what's the name of those? Primordial Solutions.
Oh, yeah.
So they're very similar, but I think what it boiled down to was the relationship built with the microbe life family became a much more obvious and strong relationship, and it was more symbiotic in a sense where it just made more sense, where, because they came from a pond and garden industry, and we knew them when I worked for Down to Earth. We knew them when we worked in the farm industry, so they were already in pond and garden. And then they came over into the hydroponics, and we're like, oh man, great! Finally, a usable, soluble microbe that's not from our industry, didn't come with the ego of our industry. And I really, there's nothing wrong with Primordial Solutions products. If you're using them, continue. They're a great instant microbe. They're, anaerobic in the tea, but we've never built that relationship, and therefore we never built the client base, and therefore we didn't build the sales. Where Photo Plus still sells like mad because it's effective, it works, and it's consistent.
Well, when we were doing this, I was more part of the store, and it was, to me, my thinking was, we can order 10 pallets of this and get 10 pallets of this. Whereas a lot of the other things, it was like, you'll get 20 pallets this time and no pallets next time. And it's like you get a phone call and they're like, well, we're working on it. Like, no, you're not working on it, mother.
Or you get it in and it's all swollen because it's already spoiled, or it's fermenting, or whatever the case. But
that being said, if you were doing SLF and Photo Plus,
I would get my hands on the Pluto, and honestly, first week of bloom or right at the very end of veg, one application then, and one application about week 3, end of week 3, early week 4. After doing lab tests and looking at that bacteria that is in there, it thrives, and you don't need a whole lot more applications.
Would you, in that instance, need a extra mycorrhizal solution situation, or is that going to Would you still do a Bigfoot or some other mycorrhiza in this scenario?
I mean, nobody wants my answer on this. I only use mycorrhiza when I transplant.
Yeah.
Because I don't kill mycorrhiza.
Yeah.
And a lot of mycorrhiza people don't like hearing that because they want you to apply it every week.
But start of the game. Are you still down with?
We put so much mycorrhiza in our potting soil. I don't even use it anymore in transplant because the mycorrhiza is alive.
I gotcha.
And so, but for people who just they have lesser soils. They've made their own soils. They may have had an issue with a flushing or an over ppm plant or a pH dive, or anytime you have to do a corrective anything, you better get a mycorrhiza there to just re-inoculate every time you have to do a correction, because you could be harming them by correcting what's going on.
So you would still say that mycorrhiza is a unique, distinct microbe that is important to the thing.
It is, but it's not a feed tea situation.
Sure.
It's I'm transplanting mycorrhiza.
Yeah.
4 weeks later, I'm transplanting mycorrhiza. Not feed mycorrhiza, because that's just pouring money in a hole that doesn't need to happen. Mycorrhiza is hardy as heck. Once it gets established and colonized, it lasts. So, very important, not every week.
Okay.
Where SLF, every week.
Yeah.
Photo Plus, you won't hurt anything by going every week or every day when you're feeding. The only thing I see there is you over digest and then you end up with no nutrition and your parts may die because you have no food left because they ate it all. So, if you have really low ppms in your potting soil or in your slurries in your mid-week or mid-bloom and you're like, oh man, I'm trying to just feed them, stop doing teas. Because teas are effectively eating the excess ppms that are in your potting medium to deliver to the plants. If you're constantly low ppms, just put your teas aside and start building back the reserves in your soil. Then you can start your compost teas again, because there's nothing for them to eat. So you keep adding life to something that has no food to sustain life. So they'll either die, eat each other, or you just have to keep adding microbes because there's nothing for them to eat when they get there.
Okay. Well, in 2023, what are your feelings about things like Bokashi, biochar, things of this nature? Are these? Let's cut that.
I mean,
are these part of the? Are these part of the mycorrhizae, the microbial game, or are these some things that we don't really know where we stand on those, and let's just stick with our photo.
Where have we ever stood on them, though? Really? I mean, do we carry a Bokashi? Do we promote one? Do we do a char and
when
promote
people
one?
ask for it's a lot like some of the other things we have, like the Hygeia, where we you want it, we got it.
Yeah,
but,
and that's it. It's like, I get it. I understand. I think if you're doing giant containers and you're doing sustainable, recycled soils and all, you need the housing. You need that that place for them to colonize and survive. But if you're in a 3-gallon pot, pump them out in 10 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't see the return on investment on a 5-gallon or 10-gallon and smaller by doing a lot of Bokashis, a lot of if you're going to add it in nice and early in your potting soils and go. But it's just an added expense right now.
If I'm summarizing for making some good weed, I would be with my nutrients, I would be with my SLF for sure, I would probably put my Photo Plus in there or my Pluto, and if I'm looking for diversity outside of that, I would be looking for that with building a tea in my backyard, more so than buying a bag that I take 1/8 of a teaspoon out of to drop on my plant.
I just don't trust that all the spores are alive every time you buy one of these instant teas.
Yeah.
So, and when you brew your own tea and aerated, so what a lot of people are doing is they're using anaerobic microbes from these bottles, and there's no diversity to aerobic bacteria and fungi. So, brewing an aerated compost tea is literally the other half of the diversity. That if you can do that, you can make little 5-gallon batches, and as simple as worm castings and compost, and make billions of beneficial microbes that you can't put in a bottle because they need oxygen to live, and there's no way you can put those in bottles without them suffocating and dying. So, again, brewing your own tea, like if I had to go all the way out there, a really good worm casting and a really clean humic compost source, that's going to give you all the diversity that you can't get in, microbe life and SLF.
So if you have 5 feet of dirt in your backyard, you should be making some tea. If you're in an apartment on the 4th floor,
get some SLF. Stick to your bottles and get, and worm castings. Top dressing worm castings is a nice slow release way of adding in bacteria that's already. they're aerated compost because it's worm castings that have been oxygenated.
Can you top dress with some of this stuff, or do
Absolutely.
you really? So, and that's obviously not as good as making a tea, but it's pretty damn good, right?
Well, the nice thing about it is that not only are you constantly leaching in bacteria, but then you're improving the soil tilth by adding in humic, because the worm casting is just humus coming out of the butt of a worm. Yeah. So if you top dress with a nice worm or compost, it's improving the tilth. It's like the Bokashi, it's like the biochar. It's giving a house for bacteria and fungus to live in, and ultimately it's going to make you a better soil. So, you know, we don't put a lot of compost because we can't find a trusted source that can make the volume. Yeah. And we don't put a ton of worm castings in because the worm castings that we love are affordable. They are a ton per product. So it's, you know, we really rely on the customers to want those things and go out there and find them.
6 ounces instead of us getting 6 truckloads.
Yeah. A lot easier to get a 4-pound bag.
Okay. Sure. Chris Rasmussen, 8059. Hi, Bob. Is it beneficial to reduce light output DLI during the final flushing stages? Do you know what that means? I don't know.
That might not. DLI.
Maybe it was just a typo. Well, is it beneficial to reduce light output during the final flushing? When you're at the end of your thing, you're going into fall there. I mean, do you reduce the light more so? Because you're already, if you're doing a photo, you're already reduced on your light. Am I correct about that?
Well, I'm wondering if it's like with a LED dialing down the intensity from like 75 to 60.
Yeah, I
honestly can't answer that. I don't have. I mean, I know like reducing light times I've done many times and have found a hit or miss. I mean, it came down to. If it was fully programmable to have it do a progressing lowering of time over the last 10 days, that'd be awesome. But I don't have the wherewithal to go in and pull the pin out every fucking day to put it
that would
an
be
hour.
Kind of cool, wouldn't it, if you had like an app for that thing where you could take a couple of minutes off every day.
I'm sure there are those too. But you know, I've seen like in my final 10 days of flushing and finishing a plant, trying to do the reduction of hours of light.
Sure.
Whether or not it was like it wasn't beneficial enough for me to do it. Like the amount of work it took to remember to get in and do it wasn't worth the outcome. Yeah. I mean, I saw a slight difference in mine, but it was one where I'm thinking he's talking LED and intensity more than his time.
I probably so. I also this when you're doing this manually, it increases the option or the chances of fuckery.
After owning a grow shop for 20 years, I can tell you I've seen it all. Like, why are my flowers just half my room will not come out of veg and the other half's almost done flowering? You go there and this timer's been broken for 9 weeks and it's just been spinning and spinning because we used to make them out of old hot water. We used to make these custom ones for people, and if you don't crank down that arrow pin that off, it just sits on the bottom and the wheel just spins.
Oh, jeez.
And actually, that guy, John Payne, the old man, that dude, I walked into his room, and the whole left side was like 12 feet tall, up and bent over on the roof, vegging out, blocking the lights from the other side that was trying to flower hermaphroditing because it was all shaded. And he couldn't figure out why it was. He was like 87 years old. I'm like, John, your timer's broken. He's like, bless his heart.
That's awesome. Okay. Oh, P.S. Talk about extending service. Place the 2022 final order at 0900-1229. Must be military man. Received the order at 15:10-12:30. Hats off to Christopher and the shipping gang. Christopher is the shipping gang.
I don't think people. I mean, you've all seen Christopher on the show.
Christopher is the gang over there.
Christopher he's an anomaly. He's a beast. He's got a heart big as his head.
And he's so low key that you don't realize he's some kind of weird science motherfucker.
No, he's a savant. And his whole family, I mean, they're all very uniquely intelligent human beings that they'll shock you. If you get the opportunity to have a conversation with any of them.
Talk about anything, and he's like, he knows something about it. And he'll be like, I don't know if that's true. And then he'll be like, well, I'm sure it's true. He's like, well, what about blah, 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 blah. And maybe that's not true.
Not a good guy to get an argument.
Yeah. Well, he is because he'll discuss it with you no matter.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Yeah, and then you find out how wrong you often are.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with finding out you're wrong, in my opinion. But it is disconcerting.
Oh, it's humbling, that's for sure.
Yeah. User WY3BG9VY81 does low VPD. What's VPD?
Vapor pressure deficit.
Yep. We can talk about that. Cause calcium lockout in the nectar line.
It depends how low. I mean, if it's tragically low, it would affect
Cause
a lot
lockout
of
of
things.
everything,
Yeah,
right?
but,
You can't.
I mean, if it's just like on the hairline of the low side of it, I can't imagine why it would be too hard to bring up.
Basically, this is that there's a range of humidity that a plant can work in.
Well, it's
and
a
you
whole
want to keep it in that.
trifecta, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a temp, light, humidity. I mean, there's a big graph everybody's following. And now they actually have controllers where you can just dial it in, which is amazing. They didn't have that when I was growing back in the day. It was like, yeah, it's hot in here. Turn on a fan. Open the door. I mean, I think if you're tragically low on any level, you're going to see. I mean, the plant will just be struggling to absorb nutrition at any level if you're on a low end. But if you're like hovering on the, 5% over from where it should be,
so
it'd be nominal.
If I'm Pig, I got this whole thing I'm doing. If I'm just Joe Schmo trying to grow some weed with some one-shot, I'm going to have a humidity temperature thing, and I'm going to try to keep it into this and to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a temp on my fan and a temp on my dehu, and
just try to
maintain that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
So, and within range of that, you're going to be okay.
Generally, I mean, usually when you fall off on the VP, because like VPD for me has only been like a 5-year.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these things, there are gains to be made, but they're small in relation to getting your watering right.
Your water.
Yeah.
Period.
Water right.
Your water source right is my first. But and the guys that get to this level and are really dialing in, I really appreciate it because their passion is showing through heavy. Yeah. But sometimes I think I've got that one customer on the East Coast, bless his heart, but he's an engineer.
Yeah.
And you know what that means. It's like, it went here, gotta go here. And it's like, dude, it's not a roller coaster, do this. It's a slow rolling hill. Just ride it out. Sometimes you can have a 12 and it can go down to 10. But don't focus on 11.
If your rocket's off 1 degree, do not turn off the engines.
Well, maybe. I mean, that might be a different story. But in your room, try not to over. It's a weed.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, as Jack Herrera once said, it's a weed.
Yeah.
So try not to kill it is the main thing. And outside of that, it grows like a weed.
Well, and if it's got real issues, they're probably not because you're off 3 points on your humidity.
Yeah, your VPD probably isn't the issue. It's probably because your pH is 5 in your soil and you've been feeding it with a uncalibrated pen. And right now, I'm going to take a public service announcement and check your pen right now. Check all your pens. Everybody, it's 2023. Check your pen.
Good.
Get a brand new calibration solution. Check your pens. Because I've had so many emails back and forth. Okay, when was the last time you recalibrated your pen? Oh, about a week and a half ago. Oh man, that's off a point. Okay, well that's your problem. And if you're chasing a dragon tail and your pen is off and you are chasing this tail, it doesn't matter what we do. We're never going to correct it until that pen is back on.
Well, and a point off on the pen is a minor deviation. It is a major deviation for your plant. I mean, it can drift quite a bit, and you wouldn't even know. Whereas your plant will know.
Oh yeah, you walk right in, and your plant will be doing this to you because it knows.
Yeah, go get your 3.0 hot tub and see how you do.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, sit in there for 20 minutes though. Really let it sit. You want to see what liquid bone meal looks like? Do that.
Okay, Graybush 1976. Sup? Long time commenter. Hey guys. I know this subject may be covered in the Nectar Bible, but wondering if you might have some tips on what nectar products to use as a prep soak when taking cuttings. What products assist in transplant shock? Does nectar have any feeding schedule suggestions for other garden plants like tomatoes and peppers? Happy New Year, guys. Be safe, have fun. So I'm guessing this would fall more in the foliar region.
Well, no, because I mean, conditioning the cubes are nice because it gives them, and really with cube conditioning or the root, root riots or whatever they are, I mean, the only thing I've ever done is a seaweed humic acid soak,
Yeah.
and it's just for the plant growth regulators that come in seaweed and the humics to kind of buffer the humates and make that connection between the seaweed hormones and the plant to be able to absorb them in. But if we're talking like
Actual nectar nutrients with
Zeus and Poseidon,
Yeah.
you know, a couple drops of each, and you know, if what I do is a little tub,
Yeah.
you know, a couple, like quarter teaspoon of Poseidon and a few drops of Zeus, make it a nice, I'd say a dark tea, really light coffee.
Okay, yeah.
Pre-soak them, and what we've always done is instead of just wringing them out, you just take them and I whip them one time.
Okay.
You whip them, that gets most of the volume out, but it keeps them really moist, and then I cut in there. But there's in the Bible a few different recipes of foliar feeding the days before you take cuttings.
Okay.
Because what I always have been focusing on, one thing that changed my whole cloning game was I used to just take cuttings, put them in, watch them wilt for 3 to 4 days, and then slowly climb out of it if they ever do, or just put on new growth and all the old leaves die.
Okay.
And I'm like, man, what is going on? And I realized, well, I just cut this baby off of its food source and then said, hey, survive with no backup in the plant. And then, you know, meeting Frank 30 years ago and doing all our stuff and realizing that plants love foliar feeding. They store immediately the nutrition in the foliage when you foliar feed. So taking that knowledge and going, all right, I'm going to be 2 to 3 days from now, I'm going to take 10 cuttings off the top. So I focus on a Medusa, Athena, depending on Poseidon, Zeus, and I foliar feed all the tops 2 to 3 times a day for 2 to 3 days, and I get them all fed on top. So now they got these reserves in there. I take the cuttings, I put them in a nice hormone-soaked root ball, and basically by the time they start to show any signs of hunger, the roots will start showing out of the bottom because they're sustaining life with what they've been stored with. They're still taking the photocells from the lighting, and then as soon as they start to feel like, oh man, we're running out of nutrition, that triggers the plant to respond by sending out roots faster to go find nutrition so they don't wilt or die. So I found my success rate went up, my the transplant shock and limp, that dry out period doesn't really occur. They just stay perky throughout the entire cutting cycle. It's not a guarantee, but that's what I found to work the best.
Hormonal root enhancers.
Yeah,
bad or feelings?
That's hard. I'm sure people have feelings.
It's feelings, though, isn't it? I mean, and that's fair enough if you have issues with that sort of thing.
Don't use them and use something like aloe, or there's a lot of things out there, but your success rate slowly goes down because your environment has to be so perfect. Where if you're using a Dynagrow or a KLN or a whatever the green stuff is, I mean, I used to just use that dip and grow, just literally a little dip, bam, put it in there, and then by the time I'm in,
it's like Vaseline. It's a universal thing. It's like
really is. I'm sure it's
thing.
terrible, and I'm sure there's some
awful.
plant growth regulator. I've always cheated there. I've never, but then I've known a couple of customers who literally just take tops, throw them on the ground, and they root.
Yeah.
You're like,
they find the crack in the concrete over near the garage.
Walk over to it even. It's like, how does that, what's his name? I don't even say his name anymore because I just am so disgusted by the human being, but we know him locally. He's got a big...
Yes?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Nobody at the store likes him. But...
he can grow a fucking plant.
Well, I don't know. He knows how to grow bugs, but what I am amazed is I remember back in the day, he just cut a bunch of shit off, throw them in a jar in his window, and you come back a week later and he rooted out the whole thing because they just would root for him. So
maybe he sold his soul.
Or soulless.
Okay, here we go. Danny's 3655. Bro, please ask him to go into depth, him being you, with Pegasus Potion. I heard it expresses the fruity flavor of strains, and I'm growing gelato. Pegasus Potion. Talked about it a lot.
Many times. I mean,
what is it? What is it?
It's feather proteins. So it's literally just the protein pulled off of feather meal, and that protein is unique because it's a very mild nitrogen, but it's the elements of whatever made up the hair of this bird that for some reason stimulates the plants to produce a more fruity and florally type terpene. And that's literally an accidental. I mean, we fully have to bro science it because I mean, we can't even get gamma frickin' dealt with at Stanford after they know it. So I'm certainly not going to be able to prove scientifically that feather meal proteins and a very mild nitrogen allow fruit terpenes and fruity genetics to express.
So this obviously isn't a replacement for Herculean harvest.
No, it's not going to make flour size. It's literally for oil enhancement or terpene enhancement in the oil. So,
and we don't know why, but we
just
they work.
It's a unique one where the growers that were running that all of a sudden in their extraction labs were coming back going, holy crap. And then when we took it out, it was a very definitive difference between adding this in and getting blueberry and taking that out and having dull. And it's like great product, but nonetheless, this just made these pop harder. So guys that were running, we even took this over into dry amendment build-a-soil style, and we put in a ton of feather meal for our nitrogen source, and the blueberry flower that we grew with those that had feather meal as their nitrogen protein source expressed so much more in blueberry than they did when we were just bottle feeding them our basic 4.
So this is not 14,000 years ago when someone noticed the plant they pissed on grew better than the other one. You happened to pawn this more so than science.
This isn't like, hey Frank, let's make better terpenes. He's like, feather protein is exactly what we need. It literally was an accident.
Oh, snap.
What was weird is I couldn't figure out why this customer was using Pegasus in bloom. And what he did was his plants were yellowing. He had a pH issue. This is 8-9 years ago. 10, I don't know, maybe longer. God, that tree took a few years out of my head. Regardless, he started using Pegasus and flowering to green his plants back up because that's what he was using.
This was his thinking.
That was his thought process. But then he came back with the flower from that round, and we're all like, "What?"
Damn, son.
So, what did break this down? Because now this isn't DJ Short Blueberry. This is the old Northern California, the one where you open it up and it's like fresh blueberries in a pint.
Yeah.
And that guy brought in a bag of pinted blueberries, and we're like, it was baffling. So he gave us his recipe, we figured it out, we started playing with it on our side, and that's when we became, and really, you don't need a ton, you don't need it a whole flowering cycle, you really want them to be developed, so second or third week, and at least 2 to 3 weeks out from finish. So it's really like 2 to 3 weeks in the middle, you just add a little Pegasus.
Okay! Oh, damn, it's a good answer. Okay, let me see here. So, just limited flock 9891 this isn't. I put this in here about nature's pride, so maybe you can answer it. The green grow stuff.
Yeah.
Can you mix that up with some water and pour it over your plant, or do you really need to top dress it into the soil with the nature's pride?
Oh.
You sprinkle it on. Can you?
I wouldn't. I mean, you can. You'll get the microbes from it, but there's more to it than the microbes. It's an actual bloom enhancement.
So this is like one shot where you can, but why would you?
Your benefit would be far greater as a top dress.
Okay.
Or if you do water and want to hydrate it and water it in, make it in a much smaller. Figure out how much you would top dress. Mix that up into a couple cups of water and then pour the whole thing on there. So anything that's solid is still.
I got it.
Because I mean it's a microbe food on top of it. So it's microbes and microbe food. So it's a great product, and especially as a top dress for finishing.
And anything you top dress, you are watering in because you're watering the plant.
Yeah, you have, and it's every time you water, so it's a nice.
You're going to get a better aeration that way, I would think. To where you mix it up. I don't know how it goes with that, but it seems like it doesn't make a lot of sense to water it in that way, to mix it up with something.
Yeah, no, it's better bang for your buck to put it in and have your microbes break it down. Because all he did is put all his microbes on their own food source, just like one shot in a sense. So when you top dress, they get wet, the bacteria and everything wake up and they just start eating the food and delivering it. So if you need it right now today, go ahead, mix it up with water, but make sure it all goes in on the top of the soil so that you aren't losing any of the value of the
You're not getting runoff. You're getting it's going down an inch or two. It's not.
Don't leave the solids in the cup.
Yeah.
Like, I got all the bacteria off. Because there's still a lot in that meal. Just put that in. So, green grow products are good.
Curly Magoo 83. Howdy, fam. Long time no talk. Gonna get some one-shot for in-laws for outdoor garden. Would a 4-pound bag cover a 10-foot by 8-foot by 3-foot raised bed?
No. 10 foot?
So, just a 10 by 8. That's the big hoss. That's one of these like square ones.
But 3 feet. It's 240 cubic feet of soil, which would be...
You're only using the tip.
160 bags of soil.
Yes.
It depends on what you're planting.
True. Well, is this like when you're doing this on concrete or something? Is that why you would do this?
No, 3 foot tall beds are nice because then you can garden like this.
Oh, it's just
and not
about
like
that.
this.
I gotcha.
So, and in-laws, I'm sure the 3 foot is about.
Oh, of course, yeah. They're a little older.
I love tall beds. My first beds were that tall until the gophers found out that they're called elevators. And they're like, hey, look, we can go 4 feet up in the air over here. And I'm like, why are my carrots disappearing? At 160, because that's 160 1.5 cubic foot bags. That's a lot. So it's 10 by 8 by 3.
Well, I mean, if you were using this much soil, though, wouldn't
that's
you...
8 yards of soil.
This is not all A1 soil, is it? I mean, there's going to be a 1.5 feet or 2 of dirt, and then maybe... no, we don't know.
I fill mine up with totes, but...
Well, yeah, but that's a little different.
Yeah, so let's cut it down to like the 6 inch. So basically cut that, it's only 80 cubic feet. I'd still be at least... a 12 pounder and only apply that on the top 6 to 8 inches. So get your beds all the way full, broadcast the 12 pounds across the entire bed.
But this is like a bag like this, and
that's a big bed. 10 by 8 is big.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to grow your whole 10 foot by 8 foot garden. You're going to have some tomatoes and some beans and some this and some that. How much one shot to feed all that business for a season?
Well, mine are 5 by 10s.
Yeah.
And they're only 6 inches of soil on there.
Yeah.
And I'm putting down about 10 pounds per bed for the season on most of my crops.
Okay.
And then tomatoes I'll top dress one more time. Right. Usually, like my tomatoes, my peppers, my heavy feeding stuff, I put the one shot in and around where the root zone is. I don't broadcast the entire bed.
Yeah.
And usually with a lot of my crops, like carrots, I do a band of it, so I just pour it right down a row, and then I plant right along next to that row. So I don't feed my whole beds all the time because a lot of that's just wasted food. So I focus right around where the drip line of the plants are going to be and top dress in that area.
So is this the handbag or the shoulder bag?
Well, there's the handbag and then the hand bag and then the 25
shopping bag. Yeah,
but a 12 pound for that would be minimum. That's a lot of soil.
Okay.
And I would put it. I wouldn't I'd only put it on the top and work it in the very top layer. Because if you're mixing into the full amount, it's so diluted.
Yeah.
I mean that's a lot of soil.
So if I got a start that I'm putting in there for tomatoes or whatever, I dig a little hole, put some one shot in there and drop it in there, or mix it. Or how would I do it?
If this is my container I'm putting in there,
I
open up a hole about this big.
Yeah.
And I go down that much deeper.
Sure.
And I make that loose, and I put a bunch down on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I put a bunch right around the ring where the hole is.
Sure.
And then I backfill it with it in the ring. So then I got gently fertilized all around here, and I got a big reserve here.
It's going to grow
but none of it is on it.
Yeah.
Because if it's just like, here, I'm going to plant this right on one shot, those roots are like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? So you don't want to just like slam them on a pound of one shot. You want it to be blended.
Texas chili. It burns.
Yeah, right there. It's like that guy's hot chocolate chips. He's like, well, these are good. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, thanks, Curly Magoo. Botanist boy. 3756. That was actually my little granddaughter's first words. We were out there in the backyard looking. Well, no, we were looking at around. We were sitting in the backyard, and you hear this wah 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 going on the freeway. She said, "Fuck boy." She didn't really.
My kid's first words were moron. And it was after my reaction of somebody cut me off and going, and he goes, moron! That was a true story.
That's awesome. Botanist boy. Hey, Scott and Bob. I have a question about Herculean harvest. I was growing with nectar in Oklahoma, where the water, my people are from Oklahoma, just a side note there, where the water pH is top.
We're Vikings, so I don't care. If I'd seen you back there, we
they aren't from there. They're from Ireland and England, and a little bit of North there, and some Spanish guy came up at some point because I got like a little bit of Iberian in there. Anyway, they started over there, came across to Oklahoma.
What did they do in Oklahoma?
Grew a dust farm, and then moved out. The Grapes of Wrath?
Oh, yeah.
They were there. That camp. They were in that camp, yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And then it got better because of the war and all. And then...
and the dust bowl stopped. And the Depression ended.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. But no, they came out on a, the Beverly Hillbilly truck. Just rolled on out here. Something else.
That's impressive.
Hey, Scott and Bob, I have a question on Herculean harvest. I was growing nectar in Oklahoma where the water pH out of the tap is 7.4. I recently moved to Missouri, where this is the show me state. We can talk about that for a little bit, or I can just keep going. Where my water pH is... Wasn't it the Missouri that Cher is on in that video? Oh my God. If I could turn that time. You don't remember this video?
How is she still alive and looking like she's 20? That's my problem with her. She's a demon. Fuck that.
I don't care.
Yeah, I do. She's creepy.
Well, maybe now that
she was together, just jump into a lake of fire.
Madonna got weird.
You think? Come on, kids, let's have a Christmas show. She looks like this. This is what her face looks like. In lingerie.
We're never gonna get. She does look a little.
Doesn't it look like her? Go look up the latest Madonna IG and tell me this isn't her face. It's creepy. It's like, what do you... Stop eating strawberries. You're apparently allergic.
Also, there's only so long you can run the sexy game.
Oh, yeah. Once you hit 60, you should have given it up. Alright, anyway. So Oklahoma, Herculean guy, 7.4 water.
I am in Missouri where my tap water is 10.1.
Ooh, so... Is that
a thing?
It is.
Yeah.
San Luis Obispo, California has that same water. It's horrible.
I've started a run and I'm having pH issues. Usually when I add Herculean harvest, my pH level goes down. But for some reason, when I add Herculean harvest here in Missouri, my pH goes up. I barely used Hades down in Oklahoma because of the bone meal brought the pH so low. Is there a reason the bone meal is making my pH increase?
Well, you got a chemistry issue there that is beyond... This isn't a nutrient problem. This is your water is garbage. No offense. Sorry to say this, but you need an RO or you need a distiller.
It's not fixable.
You will always have pH issues. Your soil is going to be a 9 every time by the end of the grow because that is all depositing. My biggest question is, that can't all be calcium carbonate. That's got to be sodium carbonate. And if that's sodium carbonate, then you just need an RO system.
And if it's this messed up, there may be other things in there that have who knows what reaction to.
Well, that's it. Is that the chemistry alone, whatever's... I'm guessing the sodium carbonate that's in that 10.1 is reacting to the calcium in the bone meal or something in the bone meal, and it's just 10.1. That's just you need RO water. I hate to say it, that sucks, but it really is.
Well, it is.
Or rainwater, or do something other than your well has a super high carbonate, and it's going to deposit into your soil regularly until you get the solution.
Just keep going.
That's going to be a hard one.
If this is an outdoor versus an indoor situation, because outdoors obviously it's raining normal water, right?
Well, it's acidic.
Yeah,
rainwater comes out of because it's carbonic acid. It's falling through. It's coming through the atmosphere, and as it does, carbonic acid is injected into it through the atmosphere.
Sure.
So your 7.0 water, by the time it lands, it'll be below 6 because of carbonic acid.
Okay.
But with that, you're pulling it from something. The well that is coming from is either a sodium well, a calcium carbonate well, but calcium carbonate at that level, it's just, again, even if you hit it with phosphoric acid all the time, you're just hydrolyzing it, then that goes into your soil. Your plant can only use so much, and we're a big proponent of a lot of calcium carbonate, but that will get to a point where your plant's like, all right, add plenty, now let it deposit in the soil, and your soil pH is just going to continue to climb. And you'll just keep having that problem over. That's a tough one.
Yeah. So, is rainwater a solution, or should you just go to the fucking RO?
Well, if you can collect enough rainwater,
would you go to all that work to get that rainwater over just setting it up an RO setup? is it worth
Yeah,
it?
I mean, because it's a shuttle and a diverting a gutter. So, I mean, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, to me, RO is such a waste.
Yeah.
Because you're getting, depending on your system, that would be a 1 to 10, at least a 1 to 10.
Yeah.
You're getting 1 good gallon for every 10 gallons you're dumping
back into the.
So I'm not a big fan of RO unless it's an absolute necessity. Rainwater, the other problem is that, great, you got 500 gallons of collection, that's good for half the season.
Yeah.
And then you're in dry season and then
there's no rain coming,
so it's a messed up deal there, so that's a trickier one.
All right. That's a show.
That's something.
All right. Happy trails.
There you go. There you go.
The OCGFAM show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM show. See you tomorrow.